World War One Legends and Legacies. Hi, my name is Becky Brandenburg, Digital Resources Librarian for the Midland County Public Libraries and Genealogy Supervisor at the Redfern Genealogical Research Center located at Centennial Library. In this presentation, we'll explore the research tools that can help us trace and provide context to the lives and times of our ancestors. Ancestor was one of these who trained on horseback under Brigadier General Hunter Liggett at Texas City, kept the coast clear at Fort Crockett along the seawall on Galveston Island, or bore the elements with Company H in the 5th Maryland Infantry at Eagle Pass. We'll be identifying many valuable resources to help you not only locate your ancestor and verify family legend, but put his or her story into context. We'll begin our journey in the U.S. National Archives Military Service Records. You can find lots of great records about your ancestors' life using digital databases like Ancestry.com, the Latter-day Saints genealogical database FamilySearch.org, MyHeritage, and others. But for locating a family member who served in the military, there is no more dependable collection of primary records for service members than the National Archives Veteran Service Record. The National Archives has done an excellent job of making service member research a one-stop shopping experience. The links in the left-hand rail on this page are your guide in identifying the correct form for the specific information you seek. And from this page, you can download the all-important SF-180 form from here. I've printed out several, so you should be able to pick up one when you leave. As you can see, all branches of the military are covered in the SF-180, including the doctors, technicians, and nurses who served in the public health service. Now, if your ancestor was already serving in the regular Army or in the precursor services of the Coast Guard, you'll also want to request those immediate pre-World War I records. Though the war raged from July of 1914, keep in mind that the U.S. did not officially enter World War I till late in the game, in the spring of 1917. For that group of service members' records, this request form will be relevant. This request form expires in July of this year. If you try to send it in after that expiration date for your pre- and World War I records, I'm told you're going to get a curt letter of denial. You don't want to make an enemy of the librarian. Like elephants and ex-wives, they never forget. So, what will you learn when you request your great-grandfather's, grandmother's, aunts, and uncles' records? Well, quite a bit, especially if he or she served in multiple duty stations, if they qualified for special assignments, won medals, or even got into a bunch of trouble. The dates and locations are immensely important if you plan to also chase down the stories about your soldier, his company, the battles he may have fought in, and the backstories for the awards and medals he earned. You can use Midland County Libraries Newspapers.com subscription to find stories in the Stars and Stripes, regional, national, and even international papers. I recommend you pursue these stories in newspaper archives and oral histories found in the Library of Congress, because what you won't find in military records are the details of your ancestors' military battles and engagements. Though his performance awards, medals, and qualifications will surely inform your understanding of his role, it's the reports and reminiscences of the people that he served with and the recollection of the battles and day-to-day happenings that will provide context and understanding of the time and your family members' place in our history. So you've ordered your ancestors' military records from the National Archive, but you'd like to get a better understanding of this person that you've never met but are curious about. There are several databases that can provide you with more primary documents, things like draft cards, Navy and Marine registries, select military registers. Family Search is a nonprofit family history organization dedicated to connecting families across generations. It's a service provided by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it's completely free to use to search for family members, build your family tree, share it with others. Using Family Search, I was able to locate my great-grandfather Harry Brandenburg's 1910 military registration at Fort Riley, Kansas. Now, according to the record, at the time of his registration, Harry was 20 years old. I see that he was born in Tiflin, Ohio. His occupation is listed as a student. He has blue eyes, light hair, and a fair complexion. Harry is 5'2.5" tall. The regiment he was to deploy with was the 7th Cavalry. However, as we can see from these blank fields, Harry did not see action. In the last column, there's a notation that he was discharged October 22nd, 1913, in excellent health. The same year, Harry registered in Riley, Kansas. The brother of great-great-grandfather Shiki is serving as a medical doctor, according to the records in Germany's directories of military and marine officers. This record was found using Ancestry.com subscription at the library. In 1914, Harry has returned to performing with a fraternal organization called McCrae's Band out of Independence, Kansas. He started with the fraternity when he was just a teenager, and in newspapers.com, I was able to find a picture of he and his bandmates. Meanwhile, in Germany, my great-grandfather Shiki's cousin Willie makes Germany's World War I casualty list. This record was also found in Ancestry. I was able to find Willie's cousin, Ensign Herman Yaki, a second-generation U.S. citizen, in the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps Registry for World War I. Herman was called up at the tail end of the war, but didn't see battle. He served till 1926. This is a passenger list of the U.S. Army Transport Service. I apologize for the quality of the image, but I wanted to include it for the scope and depth of information that a passenger list can provide. The ship was the Pretoria. Among others, it carried Private First Class Carl Shiki of Karangahoua, Texas. He served in Company A, 8th Machine Gun Battalion. The ship departed Brest, France on August 12th and arrived in Brooklyn, New York on August 25th, 1919. Carl's mother, her name was Clara, and she is a stateside contact. I learned great-grandfather Harry's cousin in Kentucky, Joseph Brandenburg, was a fireman first class aboard the USS Huntington in 1918. And then I looked up the ship's name in NavSource's Naval History site. I discovered that in 1917, the Huntington was equipped for early experiments in naval aviation. During World War I, it escorted convoys across the Atlantic and in coastal waters, and following the armistice, the ship was converted into a troop transport and made 6 round trips between January and July of 1919, bringing home almost 12,000 soldiers. I have found that learning these details has fostered a more personal connection with my ancestors. We begin to imagine what sort of work, their aspirations, the sort of concerns they were dealing with at this truly terrifying time. Great-Uncle Charles Shiki's service record had held a great deal of information. I learned that he was a private who had served overseas from March 12, 1918 to August 5th of 1919, when he was honorably discharged a week later. His assignments and the companies he'd served in are listed. Now, with his street address in New York, I turned to the New York Public Library's digital collection, and I found a photograph of the intersection 2 blocks from his place at 518 East 138th Street. I imagine that his mother must have sent him often to the grocery store there and to the bakery next door, and wonder what his thoughts were as he walked those dusty streets. Ancestry, Fold 3, and newspapers.com are free to use in the library. These are all products of Ancestry.com and costly to maintain as a service personally, but so helpful in understanding the environment and times of our relatives. The Kansas Shikis lived in small farming communities in the southeast corner of Kansas, in Independence, Coffeyville, Sycamore, and Liberty mostly. Social goings-on were fodder for the gossip mill and the lifeblood of these little newspapers. This page from the Coffeyville Weekly Journal Liberty also includes a published letter from Captain Bob Lewis. He serves in the 110th Ammunition Train stationed at Camp Doniphan in Oklahoma. Newspapers regularly printed letters home. Newspapers.com is an excellent source of information about your World War I relatives, about their lives and their communities. Now, on this page of the Independence Daily Reporter, we learn the first Mrs. Fred Shiki has passed away, and her sister Laura from Columbus stays to help take care of the kids. Spoiler alert, she becomes the second Mrs. Fred Shiki. And in that third column, Mr. and Mrs. Frank Brazier learned that their son Frank of Company K, 137th Infantry, came through the Battle of the Argonne Forest without a scratch, and that under the headline Wounded Soldier Home, we learned that Lieutenant Kiddo received a disability discharge after being wounded 3 times in that same battle in the Argonne Forest. I found some surprises in my search for World War I relatives. My great-great-grandfather Shiki had immigrated to Australia from Germany before coming to the U.S. as an old man with grown children from his second wife in the late 1800s. He left behind children from his first marriage in Australia. This distant cousin, Nicholas, was born in Germany, immigrated to the U.S. as a toddler, and we see from the information on his draft card that he is a naturalized citizen. In 1917, he was 24. His draft card also tells me that he made his living as a printer. He was short, slender, had dark brown eyes and dark brown hair. It also tells us that he lived at home with his mother, who depended on him for support. I haven't touched on my mother's side of the family, but as you can see that continuing to search under the broad category in the military collection, there are a number of specific subcategories, and they are further divided into further subcategories. These include draft, enlistment and service records, casualties, soldier, veteran, and prisoner rolls and lists, pension records, histories, awards and decorations of honor, news articles of high significance, disciplinary actions, and even photographs. I would be negligent if I didn't highlight the role of women in World War I. This is Lieutenant Edith Smith. She became the first woman commissioned to serve. Women built the Liberty engines manufactured for government use. Women built the grenades, the planes, kept the country and the military fed, kept factories running, all while fighting for their right to vote. You can discover even more about your ancestor using the Library of Congress World War I Resource Guide. Included are oral histories made by World War I vets who may have served in the same company, fought on the same battlefield, or come from the same hometown as your service member. I encourage you to check out the Associated Press News Dispatches, 1915 to 1930. This collection comes from the Washington, D.C. Bureau of the Associated Press. Topics appear in this collection arranged in chronological order, including dispatches from World War I. You'll also find the Veterans History Project listed under the American Folklore Center. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and you'll come visit us at the Red Fern Genealogical Research Center.